The police have released body camera footage from the Paul Pelosi attack as well as the 911 call. And in my opinion, having watched both and we'll go through them, I do not believe we have answered sufficiently any of the questions as to what actually happened. You can't actually see the attack on camera. You can see Depape raise a hammer. I think the video raises more questions about what happened that night. And it's very strange. In fact, many people are responding to this. Well, I should say, the theory for some time among many of the more conservative-leaning groups is that Paul Pelosi was having some kind of gay love romp that went sour, and the police came to respond, and it went south. I think based on the statements made, based on how Paul Pelosi is talking to the police, he's either drugged up or drunk. Drunk may actually be the simple answer because in the video, he's holding some kind of drink. I don't know that he's drinking. I assume based on the history of the Pelosi's, he probably was drunk, which made this very difficult for him to deal with. If the story is simply that a guy broke into his house and the dude was night drunk and didn't know what to do because he was drunk, the story kind of starts to make sense. But outside of that, the idea that Paul Pelosi just had a guy walk into his house, which was like, unsecured with no security and no cameras and nothing. And then he's just calling the police confused, like, I think I called you by mistake. This guy's waiting for my wife. I mean, I'll play for you the entirety of the 911 call and you'll decide. But there's other things of this story that need to be addressed. One, David Depape has pleaded not guilty. We saw that. This is the guy. They said he attacked Paul Pelosi. You can see him on camera, but you don't actually see the attack. You just see him raise the hammer and then you hear screaming. And I'm not going to show anything graphic, mind you. So he's pleaded not guilty. The son of Depape says he's not right-wing. And for all we know, he was a sex slave. And then if you think the story just stops being weird there, you're wrong. Because apparently the Pelosi's brought in priests to perform exorcisms in their house. Okay, I don't know what to tell you, man. This story is weird. It's very weird. Well, Mike Cernovich has given us his thoughts on what this is. And he said, it's actually kind of simple. Leftist policies in San Francisco leave us unsafe. Fair point. The evidence seems to corroborate Paul Pelosi's version of events. If you want to be charitable, I would agree with that. You listen to the 911 call and you could maybe make the argument. I think it's, probably fair. That Paul Pelosi was trying to alert the authorities as to what was going on without pissing off the intruder. But here's where that breaks down. While he's talking to 911, Depape is standing next to him. And he says, I don't know who this guy is. And Depape goes, I'm a friend. And he goes, he's a friend. What? So hold on. Paul Pelosi calls 911 and says, oh, there's a guy broke into my house. He didn't even say that. He says, a guy here waiting for my wife. And Depape is standing there with him? Like what? How do you have an intruder in your house who's threatening you with a hammer? And they say, let me call 911 real quick. And he goes, you got it, buddy. And then you're talking to 911 and the guy's like, that's fine. None of this makes sense. And when the door opens, none of it makes sense. Paul Pelosi's holding a drink. He's got one hand on a hammer. The other guy's got two hands on a hammer. And I'm like, who opened the door? And not only that, if Paul Pelosi opened the door, why doesn't he walk out to the cops who are standing there if he's concerned about a guy wielding a hammer who broke into his house? Sorry. None of this makes sense. And I'm not simply going to be like, Paul Pelosi's story is perfect. Nah, you decide. Let's go through the story. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com. Become a member in order to support our work directly. Click that join us button. As a member, not only do you support the work of me and the crew here doing videos like this and producing Timcast IRL, you're supporting our cultural endeavors. We're working on a cafe, a physical space to actually hang out, probably get a liquor license. We're working on that too. Upstairs, we're going to have a skate shop, a game shop, and potentially, we're hoping, a private club. We want to create a space for people to come and physically hang out, share ideas, play games, watch movies. We're going to have TVs on the walls. And when people walk in, regular old people, just to get a cup of coffee, they're going to see on the TV when they walk in, it's going to be Viva and Barnes, it's going to be Steven Crowder, it's going to be Sticks X and Hammer, it's going to be Timcast IRL. We are going to create a space to get people exposed to the truth. And we want to build a ton of these. So become a member at timcast.com, support our work. But don't forget, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Let's get into this story. Timcast.com reporting. Breaking. Depape Pelosi body cam footage released. Depape appears to hit Pelosi over the head, though the attack is not in full view. Let me pull up the video for you. It says graphic. Some of you have probably already seen it, but we're gonna do a walkthrough of this. Bigad Shaban says exclusive, just released police body camera video shows moments David Depape attacked Paul Pelosi at his San Francisco home. Warning, video is graphic. I am not going to show anything graphic. Okay, just forewarn, I'm not going to show anything graphic. You can't actually see the attack take place. I'm not going to play for you the full video. I'm going to walk through what to me seems to make no sense. So let's see if we're getting audio properly on here. I always have to make sure I do. I always screw up the audio, but let's here we go. Let's play. Looks like there's no audio for now. Let me make sure we got everything. Whoa, yikes. Sorry about that. All right, let's turn that volume down. Here we go.
Yeah, definitely don't want all up here.
Wait, what?
Yeah, definitely don't want all up here.
Definitely don't want all up here? I don't know what that means.
Definitely don't want all up here. Hello?
Definitely don't want all of you. I think at this point, he's walking to the front door. I think he's referring to the police. Like, they're like, should we come out? He's like, definitely don't want all of you here. Probably the cops. All right, here we go. Check this out. They're knocking. Okay, who's this guy right here? Is that another cop? I think there's two cops. Looks like probably another cop, or maybe, yeah, looks like a police officer. All right, so let's play.
Yeah. Fucking said 2620, right? No, 2640. Oh, 40. Yeah, it literally said that.
All right, the door's opening. I'm going to play it through, but then I'm going to go back and play it again, and I want you to pay attention to some things. I'll explain them for those that are just listening. The door opens.
Hi. How you doing?
Paul Pelosi is standing there.
What's
Depape
going
is
on,
standing
man?
there.
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope.
Hey.
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting an answer.
Okay, you can't actually see the attack take place in I guess I should say, you can see Depape swing a hammer, but you don't see anything else. You don't see Paul Pelosi get hit. You then see the cops run in, and they're on the ground. I'm not going to show you that stuff. People are saying, warning, it's graphic. But I want to play this through again, and then I want to play for the 911 call, because I'm sorry. I'm not saying the story's not true. I'm just saying it's hard to understand how all of this went down. So first, the cops come to the door. When the door opens, I want you to notice something. So the door opens, and we can see it slowly swing open. Okay. Who opened the door? As soon as the door opens, you see David Depape has both of his hands on a hammer. Paul Pelosi has his right hand on the hammer, and in his left hand is some kind of drink. Perhaps it's water. I don't know. I could assume he may be drunk. Based on the 911 phone call, which I'll play in full, I think he was probably drunk, which explains a lot of this. Depape may be just crazy, which also explains a lot of this. But here's a question I have. The door opens, and Paul Pelosi is just standing there. This is interesting. When the story first came out and we heard what happened, my assumption was Paul Pelosi, first we heard that like the cops came in, someone opened the door for him, they don't know who. Did someone open the door who's behind the door and we can't see them? I don't know. Because I don't see any hands from these individuals to open the door and swing it. Paul Pelosi's hand isn't there. Who did it? I have no idea. I guess maybe it was one of them. We just can't tell. The footage it's hard to see. So hold on. You call the police because someone broke into your house. The cops then show up. They knock on your door. You then walk up to the door with the guy who broke into your house, holding onto a hammer and a drink. Open the door. Perhaps he used his drink hand and it's a lever handle or something. I really doubt it. Front doors, I don't know. Maybe it is. Opens the door and swings it open while holding the hammer. Then the cop says, what's going on? And instead of walking out to the cops, you stand there in a stupor. See, something doesn't make sense, and maybe it's simply alcoholism. Now, why Depape attacked this guy? Depape may just be a crazy guy, but I also wonder, because the argument I made before, and the media got all mad at me, the left, the Democrat activist media, they were like, Tim Pool conspiracies. I was like, drug deal gone bad. Drug deal gone bad explains so much. Or, look, let me tell you about Alec Baldwin. Remember when I said It doesn't make sense, the story they presented, that Alec Baldwin was doing this movie and then he pulled the gun and a bullet went off. And I said, that requires assumptions. And they can be true. But I tell you, man, what are the odds? 5 coincidences and you win the lottery, right? Or is it 6? Whatever, you get my point. With Alec Baldwin, I said, it makes more sense that Alec Baldwin intentionally shot this woman based on all of the circumstances around it, if you actually read the story, than it does that the armorer, who is supposed to be checking the guns and the bullets, accidentally put live rounds next to the gun, who then the one expert accidentally then gives that gun with loaded rounds to the AD, the associate director, assistant director, who doesn't check, then gives the gun to Alec Baldwin. The gun malfunctions because he said he didn't have his finger on the trigger, going off and shooting this woman who Alec Baldwin was mad at. And I'm like, come on, man. I don't do the conspiracies. Guess what? The investigators found live ammunition in Alec Baldwin's gun belt. Now do you get it? I said that. I didn't literally say Alec Baldwin would have ammo on him. I said it makes more sense that Alec Baldwin loaded the gun. At this point, the evidence is Alec Baldwin had live ammo on him, had a live gun, is on camera with his finger on the trigger, shooting a woman. And now you want to argue to me it was one big circuitous mistake. I'm sorry. The simple solution is that Alec Baldwin had the live ammo, was fighting with this woman, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd convict based on that speculation. As for the Paul Pelosi stuff, let's get back to the main story at hand. My point is this. I am simply saying the story doesn't make sense as it was described in the press. I don't know exactly what happened, but I would lean towards this. This guy was a drug deal gone bad. That's why he's not fleeing. That's why he didn't want to call the police. That's why we're where we are. I don't know. There's also a simple solution in that Depape is a crazy guy and Pelosi was drunk. Let's be honest. But I will make these points again. Both of their hands are on the hammer who opened the door. Paul Pelosi's left hand is holding a drink. At what point, when this man broke into his house, did he get up and fix himself a drink? What is going on? How did he walk to the door holding onto the hammer? I don't know. I can tell you this, the explanation they've given us does not make sense. Let me play for you now the full 911 call. Make sure the volume is not cranked up like the last time so y'all don't get mad at me. It says, warning, the audio contains graphic content of a violent attack. It doesn't, by the way, which might be disturbing to some viewers. Discretion is advised. It actually just has a light conversation between the 911 dispatch and Paul Pelosi.
Friday, October
San Francisco Police 74.
2022.
Oh, I guess I called by mistake. What is it?
This is San Francisco Police. Do you need help?
Oh, well, there's a gentleman here just waiting for my wife to come back. Nancy Pelosi.
2:23.
First, strange thing. I must have called you by mistake. Oh. Do you need help? There's a gentleman here waiting for my wife, Nancy Pelosi. Now, this actually lends evidence, in my opinion, in Pelosi's favor. The story is that he's trying to alert the police to what's going on without agitating an intruder. Makes sense. That's why he said, my wife, Nancy Pelosi. Let's listen more.
He's just waiting for her to come back, but she's not going to be here for a day, so I guess we'll have to wait.
Okay, do you need police, fire, or medical for anything?
8 seconds.
I don't think so.
And it's just weird. He's willing to call 911, tell them there's a guy here, and then when she says, do you need emergency, police, fire, medical, or anything? I don't think so. Maybe he just doesn't know how to respond. Because he could have just said, yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I've heard these stories, and you've probably heard a lot of them too, where a woman will call a police department and she'll go, yes, I'd like to order a large pepperoni and a 2-liter of Coke. And they go, ma'am, you're talking to the police. And she goes, yes, that's right. And they'll say, ma'am, this is a police department, not a police station. I believe you've called the wrong number. And she goes, no, yeah, I understand. And then the police say, ma'am, are you talking this way because there is someone threatening you and you can't alert them to you're calling the police? Yes, that's correct. And they say, what is your address? Yes, so we'll do a large pepperoni and a Coke, and that's 123 Fake Street. And they go, okay. And the woman's doing this because if the abusive guy finds out she's calling the cops, he goes nuts. That being said, maybe Paul just doesn't understand how to actually convey this. He called the police in front of the guy? Let's play more.
0 to 23 and 58 seconds.
Is the Capitol Police around?
0 to 20.
No, this
They
is San
usually
Francisco.
protect my wife. They're usually here at the house protecting my wife.
No,
But
this is San Francisco Police.
Friday, October
I understand.
28, 2022.
Okay, well,
0 to 24
I don't know, what do you think?
18 seconds.
think everything's good.
He just asked David Depape a question. It sounded like he said, "What do you think?" Let me play it again.
4
I don't know, what do you think?
18
It sounds like he says, "And what do you think?" But I'm not entirely sure he said that. Then there's a muffled response.
seconds.
I think everything's good.
It sounds like he says, "And what do you think?" And the guy says, "I'm thinking we're good." That's just I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know if that's actually what's said.
Well,
0 to 24
I don't know, what do you
and
think?
18 seconds.
I think everything's good. He thinks everything's good.
And he says he thinks everything's good. So I think maybe that's what he just said.
I've got a problem, but he thinks everything's good.
0 to
okay.
20.
He thinks everything's good. I've got a problem, but he thinks everything's good.
0 to
Okay.
24
Call us back if you change your mind.
28
No.
seconds.
This gentleman just came into the house, and he wants to wait here for my wife to come home.
0 to
And so,
24 and 48.
Anyway, he told me to put the phone down.
Do you know who the person is?
No, I don't know who he is. He has this. He's telling me not to do anything.
What is your address, sir?
25 and 0.
What is your name?
Seconds.
My name is Paul Pelosi.
Friday.
Anyway, this gentleman says that he thinks everything ought to, he's telling me to put the phone down and just do what he says.
18 seconds.
Okay?
Okay, what's the gentleman's name?
I don't know. What's that?
My name's David.
The name is David.
Okay, and who is David?
25,
I don't know. What's that?
I'm a friend of theirs.
Yeah, he says he's a friend, but as I said, I've never.
But you don't know who he is?
25 and
No, ma'am.
48.
So this adds important context to what we heard earlier. He says, I don't know who he is. And then Depape says, "I'm a friend." And he goes, he says he's a friend, but I don't know who he is. That explains a lot of the context we heard earlier where people were like, why was he saying he was friends with this guy?
Seconds.
Okay.
He's telling me I'm being very leading, so I got to stop talking to you, okay?
Very leading?
25 and
Okay.
50
You sure I can stay on the
seconds.
phone with you just to make sure everything's okay?
No, he wants me to get that off the phone.
0 to 26
Okay.
and 0 8
Thank you.
seconds.
Okay.
I got more questions than I got answers, to be completely honest. But the simple solution, the easy, unfortunately, kind of deus ex machina kind of thing here is that Depape's crazy. I mean, that's it. I mean, we think he's crazy, right? The problem is saying he's crazy is a catch-all for all of the weird things that happen without actually explaining them. So I don't know. What I do know is the Pelosi's are also crazy. I mean, look, forgive me if you're someone who's performed an exorcism, but yahoo.com, Nancy Pelosi had priests attempt exorcism of her home after attack on husband, daughter says. Former House Speaker Pelosi, a devout Catholic, had priests attempt an exorcism of her San Francisco home after the hammer attack on Paul Pelosi, her daughter said. Pelosi's skull was fractured in October in a home invasion, and it continues to recover. Now, I will say this. I do not think this is a gay love romp. Here's what I think is happening. People on the right are saying the left smears us all day and night, so we are going to roll with that narrative because it's the worst and most, demeaning. Some people actually believe it. I'm not saying no one believes it. I don't think that makes the most sense. I'll tell you what I think makes the most sense. Do you believe, just like I was mentioning with the Alec Baldwin thing, that on this auspicious of nights, the Capitol Police were nowhere to be found. There was no security. The Pelosi's had no security. Their doors were, we'll just say no security. A man who has weird left-wing views and conspiracy views decides he's going to smash the window, break in, and then calmly and politely talk to Paul in the middle of the night about his wife coming home, allow Paul to call 911 and have the police arrive, but only actually take action against him when the police get there, that they're both standing at the front door holding a hammer, and that this guy allows Paul to fix himself a drink. Let me just say that again. He allows Paul Pelosi, this home invader, to call 911 and also make himself a drink. I'll tell you what I think makes more sense. Paul Pelosi invites a local drug dealer over. He's a hippie lefty guy. He probably slings pot or whatever. I've had people say, Tim, you're wrong. Rich people have rich, classy drug dealers. And I'm like, come on, man. No, they don't. Some do, sure. Here's what I think makes the most sense, though I don't know it to be true. Looking at all the details, I certainly think it's possible that a deranged conspiracy man off the internet went to the Pelosi's house the one time there happened to be no security, smashed through the window, came in, then, in his crazed stupor, let Paul Pelosi do whatever he wants until finally grabbed a hammer and then hit him, but only after the police got there. Let me just say that again. Grabbed a hammer to attack Paul, but waited until the police arrived to watch it happen. Come on, man. It just doesn't make sense. We can wipe it all away by saying the dude was crazy. Here's what makes sense. Paul Pelosi it's late. He's drinking. He wants drugs. He calls a local dealer. The dealer comes over. The dealer gets mad. They start arguing. Paul says, I'm not giving you the money. And he's like, you owe me the money. He calls 911. Paul Pelosi doesn't know what to say because how do you report to the police a drug dealer is here angry that you won't pay him? Paul Pelosi's not going to be like, I invited this guy over to sell me drugs. He wants more money than I have. I don't pay that much and I want the police to come. Or how about Depape shows up at the request of Paul Pelosi. Paul Pelosi says, how much for an eighth or whatever? And he says 50. And he goes, what? I'm not giving you 50. And then he says, are you kidding? I just came all the way out here. And he goes, no, I'm not giving you 50. That's not happening. And he says, give me the 50 or I'm not leaving. And he goes, I'll call the cops. And what are you going to tell him? You're going to tell him, I'll tell him you're here for my wife or something like that. I'll tell him you're a MAGA guy. Now, look, I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying, in my mind, if I was looking at a roulette table and it had Paul Pelosi drug deal goes wrong and random guy breaks into the house, bypassing security, allows him to call the police, waits until the cops arrive to attack him, which happened in both scenarios, fine, by the way, lets him fix himself a drink, I just be like, I'm not betting on that. That's insane. Something doesn't make sense. And again, you come back and say, well, maybe they're all just crazy. Fine. Now, the son of Depape may be crazy, too, who said to the press, for all we know, he was some sort of sex slave. I don't know if I believe that. We do know that Depape is pleading not guilty. And I will also add, my friends, you cannot see in the video the attack actually take place. Simply put, when it comes to evidence, you can see what looks to be an attack, but you can't actually see physical contact. You see Depape, he bends the hammer so that Paul can't hold on and lets go. You then see him swing, but Paul's out of view. You then see Paul on the ground. I am not trying to argue the attack didn't happen. I'm saying you can't see it clearly. What they'll have to do is show the injuries to Paul's head, the medical records, and that video, and then a reasonable person would conclude it did take place. I'm just saying, simple fact, you don't see it. That's reported in the news. So again, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what did happen. I don't know why that man was there. They ran with the narrative right before the midterm elections that a MAGA guy attacked Paul Pelosi. It's interesting, isn't it? And then he's on the phone standing next to him while he's talking to the police. That just doesn't make any sense. Depape's a crazy guy who was trying to attack Pelosi, settles for the husband, lets him call the cops. I just don't quite understand. There's some possibilities. Perhaps Paul Pelosi said, Nancy's not here. He says, where is she? Well, I have to call the Capitol Police and ask him where Nancy is. And he said, fine, call him, ask him where she is. That's a possibility. You know what I don't like doing, though? I don't like trying to stretch to find out to make something make sense. I don't like saying, well, this doesn't add up. What would make it add up? I don't like doing that. What I'm saying in terms of a drug deal gone wrong is what makes sense, drug deal gone wrong. What doesn't make sense is why any of this happened in another context. That being said as well, the crazy thing also can make sense. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying it seems to me very, very much less likely. And the reason for that is Paul Pelosi holding a beverage in his hand while they're about to fight. He's like fighting over a hammer. Why didn't Paul drop the drink? Why didn't he drop the drink and put his other hand on the hammer and stop it? I don't understand. This just doesn't make any sense. So don't come to me. No. Further, the cops open the door and say, drop the hammer. And he's like, no. So Paul Pelosi is standing there with police right there, fearing for his safety because of this home invasion, doesn't immediately jump out to the cops, just stands there, confused looking, doesn't drop his drink and grab the hammer. Sorry, I'm not doing it. It just doesn't make sense, okay? Maybe truth is stranger than fiction. Maybe it really went down the way they said it is, and it did, and we just can't expect reality to fall into what we think it's going to fall into. Whatever. Cernovich says, Paul Pelosi is the end result of alcoholism. As alcoholics get older, they end up with sketchier people and situations. This is the way it ends. There's no good ending. The fun ends quickly. Sobriety is the way, and today is the day. Maybe what happened is that Paul Pelosi was already drinking, and he's drunk. And he gets into an issue with this guy he let in his house. As for the smashed window, I don't know. Glass is on both sides. He could have hit it and then knocked the glass out on both sides. Home invasion is also entirely possible. But let me just stress this, my friends. The police open the door. Paul Pelosi has one hand on the hammer and a drink. Why didn't he use the glass and bash it over Depape's head? There is a man invading his home, they claim, holding a hammer. Paul is also holding it. Paul won't drop the drink and grab the hammer. Paul won't use the glass to attack Depape. Paul won't walk out to the police. Could he have been inebriated? Okay. Potential. Paul Pelosi was drunk off in a stupor when Depape showed up. And so he's just shaking. I don't know what's going on. I've been drinking. And in that stupor, Depape is thinking, what's he going to do? Honestly, I have no idea. I just know that this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Cernovich says if Paul Pelosi isn't safe in his home, who is? Nancy Pelosi was mayor of San Francisco. Her heir, Gavin Newsom, is governor. They've had their run of California in the country. How has that worked? The wealthy live in delusion. No one is safe once you allow terror. He says Scalise, like Paul Pelosi, was attacked by a crazed left-wing lunatic. If Scalise supported policies allowing terror on the streets, and as Pelosi does, my opinion would be different. And finally, he says the evidence corroborates Pelosi's claims. Sketchy situation resulting from left-wing policies allowing sanctuary for criminals. My hope is this is a reality moment for Democrats. No one is safe once you release and unleash the zombies. It's not. Sorry, man, it's not. They did an exorcism on the house. Was Depape a demon? Was he possessed? Do they know something we don't know about what happened that night? Why would you do an exorcism? I just think none of it makes sense. And the exorcism only makes things a whole lot worse. So, sure. By all means, just poo-poo it away and say, I don't care. It happened exactly as they said it did. But I think this. If I was the defense attorney for Depape, those questions I asked are legitimate questions the jury is going to have to wonder on. Now, don't get me wrong. They're going to see a video of Depape grabbing the hammer, raising it back and swinging it. But depending on the charges levied against him, home invasion, Depape says he's invited in. I'm not saying he did. I'm saying will he? Will he say I was invited in? If he does, you're going to have a hard time explaining a lot of what happened. He's going to make the argument that he was invited in and he's friends. He even said he was friends. I would ask the jury, look, you can see the attack happen on camera. You're probably in a bad position trying to argue that didn't happen. The jury is going to watch that. And even though you can't see the physical contact, you see him swing the hammer. You'll see the medical reports. Fair assessment. I think it's fair to say Depape attacked him. You just don't see it on camera. However, the question is why? And I wonder what answer Depape is going to have because he is pleading not guilty. For what reason? Maybe he'll argue that he was being held there. He can argue a lot of things. I mean, it's hard to believe those things. But the one thing I can tell you is that reasonable doubt is the standard by which people get found not guilty. And if the defense says, my question for you, if Paul Pelosi truly believed that this man was attacking him or threatening him, why didn't he try and grab the hammer? Like with two hands. Why didn't he go to the police? Why did he just stand there? Why was he holding a drink? His story doesn't add up. And that is reasonable doubt. Doubts that I have. So I tell you this. If you came to me as a juror and said, we're charging Depape with home invasion, attempted murder, unlawful detainment, blah, 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 I'd say, not going to happen. Sorry, not happening. I have a high standard. I'd say, I don't know enough about what happened. If you came to me and said, okay, how about just attempted murder? I'd say, nope. There's a video of him attacking. I don't know why he's attacking him. I have no idea. If you came and said something like aggravated assault, I might be like, let's talk. Let's compromise. I see a video of a guy swinging a hammer at a dude in front of the cops. I don't think Depape is innocent in this one. I just don't know exactly how it went down. And I think Paul Pelosi is not being completely honest about it. What a fun Friday to get that footage released. We'll probably talk about it tonight on Timcast IRL, but maybe truth is stranger than fiction. It's the easiest way to put it. Maybe the reality is sometimes weird things happen. And maybe we just go with the footage that we got. Ultimately, it comes down to this. I think Paul Pelosi is a really, really bad guy. Like Matt Gaetz pointed out, they got a bill to break up big tech. Paul Pelosi buys the dip. Bill disappears. Who profits? I think he got into a DUI recently. He's a bad guy. We know he drinks too much. Could it be he invited Depape over, got super hammered, got angry with him and said, I'm going to call the cops, and then everything spiraled out of control? Maybe Depape hit him with a hammer because he was pissed to see the cops actually showed up. It would explain why both men were at the door. It would explain why Pelosi had one hand on the hammer. It would explain why Paul Pelosi didn't go to the cops. Because him and Depape knew each other, and there's a knock on the door, and Depape goes, did you seriously call the cops on me, dude? And he's like, I told you. You were actually... And then he's got the hammer. He's like, I'm going to go to the door. And then Paul's like, I'm going to the door. And they both go to the door. And then Paul grabs the hammer. And then someone opens the door despite their hands being full. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's a shelf there, but no, there's no shelf there. I have no idea. And then once Depape sees it's the police, he gets mad and he says, you mother. And then he takes it and he hits him with it. Maybe. You tell me. Comment below. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.